Hey everyone, okay, so this is my all spoiler review for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Now again, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie and then come back and watch this review. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to go over what I didn't like about the movie, and then I'll go into what I did like about the movie. What I didn't like about the movie, there were a couple things I didn't care for. Number one was the music. Okay, music plays a huge role in the Star Wars franchise. Huge role. As you all know, John Williams has done the music for almost all these movies, or he has done them actually for all these movies, and he's done a beautiful, amazing job at that. He's created iconic music for Star Wars. This movie was actually scored by Michael Giacchino. He did the score for, I believe, The Incredibles and Up. And he's a very talented guy. However, I feel like in this film, the music was not. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It would have been fine for any other film, Star Trek or any other science fiction film. It just didn't feel very Star Warsy to me, and that was my biggest issue. There was no standout, pieces of music in here that I could even remember after seeing the movie. It just kind of all blended in. It didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt more like just a score for a science fiction film. And in Star Wars, the music is almost like a character in and of itself. So I felt like in that regard, Rogue One was really lacking. I felt like I could really feel like, the absence of a really memorable score. It makes a difference, and in a movie, like a Star Wars movie, that's a big deal. Okay, so that was my biggest complaint. I mean, I know, in all fairness to Michael Giacchino, he only had like 3 weeks to score the film. Okay, they brought him on board like 3 weeks before the release date or something like that. It was like in November sometime, I believe. He had a very short window. Like I said, the score isn't bad. It's not like a terrible score. It just doesn't really fit with Star Wars. It didn't sound very Star Warsy to me. So that would be my excuse me, my chief complaint in regards to Rogue One. My second complaint in regards to the film was the title card. So when the film starts, they have a little backstory of like Jyn Erso and Galen Erso and her family, and then they flash Rogue One on the screen. That Rogue One, in my opinion, looks super cheap. It looked like something that you could whip together on iMovie or something. It didn't look very professional. It didn't look very appealing. I don't know. It really struck me as really amateur looking, and I was really surprised too, because so much of the technology in Rogue One is off the charts, groundbreaking, and then for something so simple like a title card to get that so wrong, I don't know. That really kind of shocked me, but I didn't like the title card at all. I don't know why they didn't just use the Rogue One title that they were using in all the trailers. That would have been fine, but they didn't, and this particular version didn't do it for me. Okay, so those are my two biggest gripes about the movie. A third gripe, and this was to a lesser degree, a lesser extent. I felt like this team of rebels, this Rogue One, I felt like they could have been fleshed out more in terms of like their backstories. Now, for all you Star Wars junkies out there, there's a book out right now called Star Wars Rogue One Catalyst. Okay, if you've read Catalyst, you get a great backstory on all these characters, and you really go into Rogue One with a more fleshed out experience. Okay, that's what I've been hearing. I haven't read Catalyst, but the people that have seen Catalyst, they go in knowing more information about Jyn and Galen Erso and their backstory, and a lot more about Orson Krennic. So their experience after reading Catalyst with Rogue One was more satisfying, more fleshed out, because they had this backstory. I just wish that they would have spent a little more time getting to know each one of these characters for the casual movie going audience that, you know, the that maybe are not like Star Wars canon junkies that will read the books. So that was another gripe. It was minor though, because I felt like I still, even though you didn't get a whole lot of like meat in terms of like getting to know the characters, I still feel like it was done in such a way that you still really cared about them. So it was still done very well. I just wish I could have learned a little bit more about each one, because I love these characters. They're all so cool. So those are my biggest gripes. Those are what I didn't like about the film. What I did like about the film was pretty much everything else. The cinematography was absolutely gorgeous. It was a war movie, which is what Disney and Gareth Edwards promised us. There's times in this movie that are so gritty and visceral. You're like in the trenches. There's explosions going off. It's dirty. The stormtroopers are filthy. They got mud like all over them. You feel so like in the trenches, in this battle, in this war. It's so different than any other Star Wars film. The camera isn't gliding back and forth or whatever like in all the saga films. The camera's real shaky, and you feel like almost like a reporter embedded in this war zone. It's incredible. The way Gareth Edwards approached the directing of this film was brilliant. It looks fantastic. I wouldn't mind if every Star Wars film looked like this. It was awesome. So in that regard, I loved it. I loved the story. Some people were complaining about the pacing in Act 2. I actually liked the pacing in Act 2. It kind of slowed it down a little bit and gave us a chance to breathe and kind of process everything and get to know these characters a little bit more. And I like that it slowed down a little bit, because by the time you get to Act 3, it's high intensity. It's craziness, off the charts intensity. So I feel like having a slower Act 2 actually benefited this movie a lot. In terms of Act 3, I mean, it was probably one of the best Act 3s I've seen in a long time for any movie. The space battle at the very end was off the charts incredible. The way they did this, I mean, it was usually with a lot of space battles and whatnot. If they go on for too long, you get kind of tired of it. This one you didn't. I mean, I was like on the edge of my seat watching this thing. It was incredible. They had the space battle, then down below the ground battle. It kept you on the edge of your seat the whole time. It was so entertaining. I would honestly say it's the best space battle in any Star Wars film, even the original trilogy. Okay, this space battle, so well done, so well directed. Gareth Edwards actually, for those of you that aren't familiar, Gareth Edwards actually took some unused footage from A New Hope, some of the pilots, and he put them into that space battle. So some of the pilots that you see in that space battle are actually footage from the original film, A New Hope. So keep an eye out for that if you see it multiple times. Some of those pilots are actually 1977 pilots from that original film. It was like unused footage or something, I think he said. So I thought that was actually a very cool touch. Very, very cool to kind of tie everything together, you know? But yeah, the space battles, the ground battles were super crazy in Act 3. The scene that everyone's talking about is that Darth Vader scene. I mean, that was so intense. I mean, when those rebels were locked in that corridor and Vader comes in, he just he ignites his lightsaber and just starts like chopping these rebels down. He's like force choking them and like throwing them onto the ceiling and then cutting them down. It was so brutal, so violent. It was like Vader's like moment of horror, you know? I mean, it was almost like a horror movie. They're like banging on the windows trying to get out of that corridor, and he's just cutting them down. It was so intense and so visceral and real. I loved it. That was honestly probably my favorite scene in the entire film. So well done. I love how Gareth Edwards approached it, where he kind of sprinkled Vader in. You got him in a few scenes, and at the very end, he just, was a total badass. But it was done in such a way that respected the character, and I love that. They didn't overuse him. Disney could have easily put a ton of Vader in this film, and sold even more tickets than they already did by having more Vader. and they held back on that, and they put him in just the right moments to have the most impact. And I really appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that they respected the character and they didn't just throw him in, you know, like with a ton of screen time and watered him down. I'm glad that they didn't do that. That they put him in at just the right moments. And that end scene knocks you on your ass. I mean, it's incredible. So Vader was handled perfectly. That end scene was amazing. There's two things like that everyone has an opinion about right now. It's kind of controversial. The Tarkin and the Princess Leia. Now, I don't know what people are complaining about. Tarkin looked fantastic. Tarkin looked so good. I've never seen CGI facial recreation like that in my life. Okay? He looks fantastic. Then, which I think even looked even better, was the Leia at the end. I honestly couldn't tell the difference between her and Leia in the original trilogy. It was so seamless, so spot on. Her voice, the way she looked, you know, I mean, it was great. To me, whatever technology they were using for the Tarkin and the Leia, it's a total game changer. It's a total game changer. The way those characters looked, the way they approached them, looked so real. Seriously, it's a game changer. It looks way better than the Tron stuff they did like 5 or 6 years ago. And it even looks better than the Iron Man stuff they did for Civil War. So, yeah, I was really happy with how they did Princess Leia and how they did Tarkin. Really super happy. And if they can really perfect it even more so than what they have done in Rogue One, I mean, that's opens a whole new world of possibilities for films going forward. I mean, they can bring back any character they wanted. And it's seriously, the technology in Rogue One and what they did with Leia and Tarkin is a game changer. So I was super happy about it. I know a lot of people were complaining. They didn't like the way they looked. I don't know. For me personally, I thought they looked great. So those are my thoughts on Rogue One. If I was to rate the film, like if I was to go from like a 1 to a 10, I would honestly give Rogue One about an 8.9. It was super. It was awesome. I had such a blast. I mean, it was everything that I was expecting from this film. They did a great job. I had just a few complaints that were overall pretty minor. For the most part, they really delivered. I actually liked it more than The Force Awakens. I felt it was much better than The Force Awakens. I love The Force Awakens, don't get me wrong, but I felt like Rogue One was something that I enjoyed a whole lot more. So those are my thoughts on Rogue One. Post your comments below. Let me know what you think about Rogue One. Let me know what you think about CGI Tarkin and CGI Leia and everything else. Comment below. I try to reply to all the comments. So if you leave me a comment below, I'll probably reply to you. I try to get to all of them. But I appreciate all the support. Like, subscribe. I do regular content on Disney and Pixar and Lucasfilm all the time. So subscribe to me to keep up to date with everything Disney and Star Wars related. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.